One of the main reasons that men struggle with sexual discipline is because there's a lack of clarity regarding their vision for life and their commitment to that. Like, what am I committed to over and beyond my biological and physiological urges, right? What am I committed to? What am I committed to? What am I committed to in my work that regardless of how my leader shows up, regardless of the circumstance, I am going to hold the line. I will bring excellence no matter what. And if I can't bring excellence, then I got to redo it. You got to give me an opportunity to redo this, right? What are you committed to? And by the way, all of this has a thread of biblical principle. And if you want to be successful, then all you have to do is follow the template that the Creator gave you to live. You know, there's scriptures that said, you know, in all things, like in everything that you do, you give 100%. I'm paraphrasing, but that's a biblical principle, right? So it doesn't say if you have a good leader. It doesn't say if you like your leader. It doesn't say if you like your job. Like, I'm committed to excellence no matter what, because it matters. You don't know who's watching. Being out of the studio, I think sometimes when you slow down, you start thinking. And if I were to summarize how we spent the first half of the year, for those of you who listen to me, one of the things I was thinking about is I was like, would listeners remember? And here's the reason I'm asking this question, is because we're bombarded by so much information. Like, are you able to actually distinguish what you should keep and what you should really be meditating on and what you should just let go? It's funny. Yesterday, my wife and I were talking, and she was like, you know, when so-and-so happened, they said this to you, you know, have you been thinking about that? And I was like, it didn't make sense to me. I let it go. It blew away with the wind. Like, I'm not about to, you know, be thinking about somebody else's problem or situation like that. Like, I was like, I tried to help. They gave me an answer that didn't make sense. I let it go. I was like, okay, you know, obviously you're not interested in help. I'm not going I'm not going to obsess about it, right? But then there's other things that I turn over in my mind, you know, and I'll be completely transparent. One of them is like how to simplify everything that I'm doing. Like, if there's something I'm obsessing about in 2026, I'm thinking about that a lot. So then when I hear information about that, then that's what I'm thinking about, right? I'm thinking about those thought leaders, etc. I'm sharing this because over the first part of this year, what I aimed to do was really begin taking those of you who listen to Inspirational Perspective on a transformational journey. Partly because most of the time, the teaching and the knowledge that transforms a human being comes at a premium. It comes at a very high premium. And for me, I was blessed. I was blessed to be able to pay that premium. But often when I think about, like, what if I didn't have 5+ figures to actually put down and sit through a course, the resource of time, because time's a resource. And by the way, I get that some of you, like, you gotta stay on top of it or everything falls behind. I understand that. You know, you're working on, you know, you got your days off and you're working on your days off. So, you know, got to make a couple extra because everything's got to fit. Everything's got to fit. And what I thought about at the beginning of the year, and this is what I've been praying about too, is how do I begin to share a message and teach in a way that supports the person who is very serious about taking their life to the next level and being transformed to transform with only paying the premium of their attention. And I've said it before, that is a high, high cost. But most of what I'm sharing comes at a price, it comes with a price tag. It comes with a very high price tag. And so you can pay the premium of your attention, and I believe, and this is something else I've said. One of the things I do week in and week out, I take phone calls from leaders, from executives, from people who have big problems. I support them in solving their problems as a coach. And I've actually said this before, and some of you have reached out to me via email. You've reached out to me, or you met me in person. And then what will happen is a person will do, like, they'll try to download their problem in 5 to 10 minutes and then try to get me to answer it. And I've said this to you. Call me on Sunday. Call me on Sunday morning, 773-591-1690. Share exactly what you're sharing, and I'll support you. Why do I do that? I do that because this show is one of the ways I believe the Creator has me giving back. Like giving back so much of what was given to me. And I want to do that for the person who can't dial up a coach, an expert, a strategic advisor for the important things that they're struggling with in their life. Like, that is what this show is about. To provide support to those who otherwise couldn't afford it, don't have connection to it, don't have the network, don't have the links or the first degree of connection where they can actually get this type of support. That is what this show is about. And so I'm reiterating that because we're at the mid-year mark, 2026. And what I've been reflecting on is how this year has gone, not only for me, but for those who are Slay Your Goals members. And I'll talk about Slay Your Goals in a minute here. Those who are Slay Your Goals members. And many of you all who listen, the thing that scares me most is that someone will become overwhelmed and quit. And I was sharing with my Slay Your Goals members on Thursday night a story from my own life. And before I started the story, I didn't realize how important that moment was in my life until I shared it with them. And I'll share the story, and then I'm going to get into part of what we're going to talk about today. But I want for you to keep in mind what this show is about, the intention of the show, so that if you ever have a point in your life where you need support, you can call 773-591-1690 at 7:15 a.m. When the commercial break stops and we go on the air. You can call and you can get that support from Linal Harris. That is why I'm here. That is what I'm committed to. For those of you who listen to the radio show, I got a phone call on Tuesday. I think it was Al. He was like, "You're my coach. I know you listen, brother." And Al has actually called in with questions about his business. And I believe Al can attest to the fact that I coached him on it. And just in like 10 minutes on the radio, took his business to the next level. These are the type of outcomes that I'm committed to. But you have to get over your fear, which is what this episode is about, is overcoming the interpretation of fear. And is fear going to be your leader? Are you going to allow fear to lead you through the rest of 2026? And that's the big question you got to answer. And the average person is arrested by their fear, led by their fear, and they have become a prisoner of their fears, most of which are highly irrational and incredibly illogical. But it's real for them. And because it's real for them, then every time they look to make a move, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and become a Slay Your Goals member. Fear shows up and say, "Don't you do that. Don't you do that." And the reason why is because it wants to keep you in the same bubble that you've been in for the last year, for the last 2 years, for the last 3 years, for the last 5 years, and further. And at some point, you got to break the cycle. And the way you break the cycle is you got to do the thing that you're most afraid of. Fear, one moment of fear can completely transform your life. So I shared a story with Slay Your Goals members on Thursday night during our session. And I believe someone asked me a question. Can't remember exactly what the question was, but it has something to do with, can you give us an example of how a moment of fear could have changed your life? It was something like that. And I could be off. So if it's a Slay Your Goals member listening, if you were the one who asked the question, then remind me of exactly what the question was. And I thought about it for a little while. And there are a lot of places I could go. But I know that one of the major fears that people have is for the spotlight to be on them in some capacity, right? And if that's not you, you're a little different. I want you to think about whatever fear it may be. But in this case, I was a senior manager, and I was working, at this technology company. And part of my job was to provide, reports, analysis around everything that I was doing to run operations for customer service. And as you can imagine, customer service made up a third of the business, so I had a pretty important role. And I was asking for more responsibility. I was saying that I wanted to be an executive. I wanted to go to the director level. And so my vice president at the time gave me a challenge. And what she did is she said, well, if you want to be at the executive level, then, you'll have to be in certain types of meetings. I'm about to step into a meeting with the CEO and the rest of the C-suite officers. And what I do is I take this report and I deliver it to them. The report that you give me, I deliver it to them. So the same way that you basically explain this report to me, I explain this report to them. She was like, but you explained this report to me just fine. Why don't we go today and you explain it to them? Since you're ready to go to the next level, you want to be a director in the company, I think this will be a great exercise for you. And by the way, she wasn't doing this to set me up. I had been asking not to go in that meeting, but asking what is it that I need to do to go to the next level, which, by the way, if you are working in the corporate environment, you should be doing on a regular basis if you want to go to the next level. If you don't want to go, just keep your mouth shut, and I promise you will stay in the same corner you've been working in for the next 10 years. I'm not being facetious. It's just how it works. So I was asking her this, and she said, okay, then let's go ahead and get you some visibility, get you in this room. Now, I didn't know she was going to do it that day, but she did. And I was so committed to it that regardless of my fear, I was like, okay. And when I say fear, I was petrified. You're about to take me into a room with the CEO, the COO, the CFO, the CMO, like all the C's. And I didn't get a chance to prepare for this all weekend. It's just happening. And it's one thing sharing a report with somebody you know and you become comfortable with. It's another thing walking into an experience like that, partly because of how our survival mechanism works, right? If you recall, we started this episode with everything about the survival mechanism is sourced by the very root of fear, right? And so fear is at the middle of your survival mechanism, and then you have your automatic ways of being, going for feeling good or bad, and outside of going for feeling good or bad, navigating or always looking for magical moments. We talked about that. And all of this makes up your comfort zone. And whenever you operate outside your comfort zone, we have physiological responses, mental responses. We sweat, we stutter, all those things. So as you can imagine, when I walked into this room with all these leaders, and then now let's put some color to it, because I was the only one that was of a shade of brown in that room. And so right away, I began to feel imposter syndrome, fear. What are you doing in here? I was in the unknown. And so you can only imagine what my performance was like in that moment. It was not good. It was bad. In fact, it was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous. If there's a picture of somebody crashing and burning, then that's all you really need to take a picture of if you want to know what happened in that meeting that day. You say, Linal, wow, you basically walked into a wall. You walked right in. So you're telling us that that is what we should do? And I'm telling you, absolutely 100% yes. Now, why? Why would I say go walk into a wall, go walk directly into potential failure? Well, let's finish the story. So I walk into the room and my hands are shaking, my voice is shaking, and I can't even read what's on the paper because my hands are shaking as I'm holding it. My voice is shaking. And then the more I hear myself talk, the worse it gets because I'm like, why do I sound like this right now? What are they thinking? So now I'm thinking about things outside the report. What are they thinking? I look up The CMO is looking at me. She has this look on her face of absolute concern, of absolute, you ever seen somebody with deep, it was deep empathy. Like, oh my goodness, he shouldn't be here, right? What is this young boy doing to his career? And before I can finish the report, my VP, she takes the paper from me and she eloquently finishes it. And I sit there in the midst of despair and failure. And it's like, I couldn't get out that room fast enough. And you're saying, Linal, you're telling us to sign up for that? Yes, 100%. Keep listening. So we walk out the meeting, my VP and I, we go back to her office and she goes, how was that for you? And I'm like, man, that was awful. I'm so sorry. I started apologizing. I wasn't ready. I needed practice, this, that, and the other. And she was like, well, Linal, these are the kind of rooms you would be in. If something happened where I'm on vacation or I can't be in the office, guess who's going to be in there? You. And so I'm shaking my head and I'm kind of looking off. And she says, well, I'm sorry. I probably should have given you more notice, but that's part of what it takes. And so, we can exploit, like we can deep dive into this later when we have a one-on-one, but, have a good week. This is a Monday. This is how I started my week. And something said like, nah, man, you can't let it go. You can't let this go, because there was a commitment on the other side to go to the next level. And I really want you to understand this about how we navigate past fear no matter what happens. The biggest differentiator between those who succeed and those who do not is clear commitment. That's it. Life will always be hard. Okay? Life is always going to throw curveballs at you. There will always be something that you need to navigate that you don't know how to navigate. There will always be something that comes that will throw you off your game. The question is, are you clear on what you're committed to in that facet, in that pillar of your life? It's part of what I work on with Slayer Goals members week in and week out. Like, what is your commitment? What is your commitment? What is your commitment? Even now, as you listen to me, what is your commitment? What is the commitment that you have for your health? Are you committed? Are you committed? Because real life is going to happen and throw curveballs at you and temptations at you. What are you committed to? One of the main reasons that men struggle with sexual discipline is because there's a lack of clarity regarding their vision for life and their commitment to that. Like, what am I committed to over and beyond my biological and physiological urges, right? What am I committed to? What am I committed to? What am I committed to in my work? That regardless of how my leader shows up, regardless of the circumstance, I am going to hold the line. I will bring excellence no matter what. And if I can't bring excellence, then I got to redo it. You got to give me an opportunity to redo this, right? What are you committed to? And by the way, all of this has a thread of biblical principle. And if you want to be successful, then all you have to do is follow the template that the Creator gave you to live. There's scriptures that said, in all things, like in everything that you do, you give 100%. I'm paraphrasing, but that's a biblical principle, right? So it doesn't say if you have a good leader. It doesn't say if you like your leader. It doesn't say if you like your job. Like, I'm committed to excellence no matter what, because it matters. You don't know who's watching. And then number 4, what is my spiritual commitment and the commitment I've made to my own creator, to my own creator? If you listen to me on Tuesday, T was like, well, but what have you found to be like the thing that you use to leverage your sexual discipline? And I said, it's very clear for me because my wife is number 3 in my life. And so in order for me to step out on her, I have to pass up two other very important commitments. The commitment I have to the Creator and the relationship that I want to keep intact with Him. The commitment I have to my life's purpose, that is His will for my life. And then the commitment I made to her at the altar. Right? And so in order for me to step out, I got to go past those two before I even get to her and how she might feel. Which means that if I'm not happy with her right now, I don't feel the freedom to go out and do something crazy because I still have responsibility to the Creator and responsibility to the purpose that He gave me for my life. It's commitment and clarity that had me look at my VP in that moment and say, I've got to do this again. I have to do this again. And she looked at me surprised and said, what do you mean? I want to practice this week. I'd like to go back into that room next Monday and share this report again, if you're okay with that. And she just took a deep breath like, okay. Kind of like if you want to torture yourself like that because it was so bad. But I was operating from a place of commitment, not fear. The fear said, never, ever go back in that room again. Never go back in that room again. The commitment said, you have to go back as soon as possible. And my question to you this morning is fear your leader, or are you allowing the commitments that you have in your life to lead you no matter what? And then the second question is, do you even know those commitments? And if you don't, that's one of the reasons you have to invest in yourself and become a Slayer Goals member or take something, take it to the next level in some capacity. If not with me, somebody else. The outcome of the Slayer Goals membership is clarity around commitment. If there's anything, we just went through our mid-year review. And if there's anything that I noticed for the members who were there, is regardless of where they found themselves in this mid-year review, they knew what they were committed to. And so they knew what was in breakdown as a result of those commitments. You know how valuable that is? To be clear on the line in your life. And one of the reasons most people are just pushed around and tossed about mentally and spiritually and even physically, because when I tell you that the great deceiver wants to take every part of you, he wants your mind, your body, your spirit, he wants it all. And one of the reasons people are pushed around that way is because they're not clear. They're not clear on what they're committed to. So that week, I obsessed about the report. And I went back into that room that next Monday, and it wasn't stellar. It still needed help, but I did a better job. And then I went back again, and I did a better job. Now, let's fast forward somewhere. What I didn't know is that one day I would have a platform like this, that I had to develop my effective communication skills at all levels, because I would be strategically supporting CEOs one day. I didn't know that. I didn't know that I would be on the radio. I didn't know that one day on Sunday mornings for 2 hours, I will be supporting people with transforming their lives and take it to the next level. I didn't know that. And so what if I allowed fear to be the leader? I wouldn't be here. On that is just one decision. I want to be clear about this. One decision. Because I believe what happens a lot of times for folks is we believe that little small decisions, little small places where we let up or we let go or we don't push ourselves don't matter. I don't matter that much. And we don't know that if I had just pushed myself, if I had remained committed in this one area of life, how many doors that one door would have led me through. And for many of us, the reason why we're stuck right now is because there was a door open that we allow fear to keep us on the threshold of. We didn't walk through. And so what I'm saying now is at this point in your life, are you going to allow that to continue to happen? Are you going to allow for fear to continue to be your leader? Or are you going to reassign how you move in your life, and place it under the commitments that you hold and the Creator's will for your life. It's that simple. Now, we can go all the way back to, it's easier for me to say, well, what if I didn't leave corporate America? That's a big one. You don't make leaps like that before you make little small jumps. I'm going to go back into that room and present this again. Little small jumps. And so my question for you this morning is, where are you supposed to be making little small jumps that you're allowing fear to hold you back from? You're allowing fear to be the complete leader and compel you to stay still. And the best way to know is if you feel stuck, because what fear does is it freezes you. And nothing good comes from that. Nothing good comes from that. Nothing good comes from being frozen. If you look at the universal laws, the laws that God created, the laws that he laid out, like, you can only be one of two things: in motion or stuck. And so the question is, where are you in your life? And if you're curious about why you're stuck, consider it's because fear has you frozen and has become your captain and your guide. And what fear says is, stop, chill, don't do it, stay right here. This is the safe place to be. I suppose part of what I want to do is put whatever fear you feel in a chokehold to give you some reprieve, like cut off the air so you can get away. Like, I'm doing the best that I can.
I just like to know, when it comes to being financially sound or being financially stable, if you're working in a career and if it's not panning out, right? And we always heard this cliche that if you constantly do something, it's not going to work out. Form of insanity. Do an individual have to pivot to go into another industry in order to be financially sound and stable to help their family or help themselves? And that's my comment.
All right. No, it's a good question, Mark. So let me say this. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make when it comes to their career is to be misaligned. And here's what I mean by misalignment. Because we don't have an intimate relationship with ourselves, and intimacy is, I know my top 3 passions in this moment. And so hopefully you're writing this down, Mark. I know my top 3 passions in this moment. I know my top 10 talents, not someone else's top 10 talents, but mine, right? At the barbershop, we're having a conversation about Jalen Brunson, like all the things that this man can do, how talented he is. You can name, I mean, within the time that I was sitting in the seat, at least 10 to 12 talents about this man. But if I were to turn it back on those brothers and say, so then what are your 10 talents? Not in basketball, just in life. Most people would say, I don't know, man, I hadn't thought about it. And because we don't know ourselves intimately, what happens is we get misaligned. We find ourselves in jobs that feel difficult, partly because they don't allow us to actually play in our place of talent and passion. They don't allow us to actually leverage the strengths that we've used most of our lives building. And so the first step is to get to know yourself. Like, well, who am I and what am I up to, and how does the work that I'm doing, how should it align? And what am I talented at? And the beauty about doing work that you're talented at is all of a sudden it doesn't feel so difficult because you're good at it. I feel incredibly blessed to go week after week after week without really feeling exhausted of my work. When I talk to a client, I spend 60 minutes working through deep problems. I don't feel exhausted after that because I'm passionate about seeing them be successful. I care about them, not only their financial success, but their spiritual success, their health, their wealth, their family. I care about them deeply. And I'm playing in a lane of talents where, because I'm aligned with the gifts God gave me, this is not hard work. It's not hard work. And so then I can give abundantly because I'm operating from a source that is infinite.
People go to church on Sunday, man. Wow, you do it the real deal, okay? No, I'm saying, I don't mean it like that in a negative way. It's just that people go to church religiously every Sunday, man. They praying and giving money and all this. They're not getting to any real things in their life to change. It's like you just doing the same thing, trying to get somewhere. This is what I was going to ask you.
Hey, real quick, Jimmy, to that, and I'm going to let you answer your question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you have two type of people that go to church, and you got two type of people that listen to this show. It's the same thing. There are folks, regardless of who the preacher is, that go to church and transform their lives and begin moving differently. You've met them. You know them. You like, man, what happened to you? They're like, man, I went to church. And you're like, wow, okay, you can see a difference. And you see they're being serious about it because they care and they're investing themselves, not just on Sunday, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in what they heard and what they believe about Sunday, right? And then you have the other version.
Awesome.
You have the other version. They go. They listen, but then they forget an hour later, and you encounter them on Sunday afternoon at a little, at a cookout, and you almost smirk when they say, "I just came from church." Now, tell me if there's a lie there.
That's the fact. But you know what's interesting? It's even bigger than that. It's because people buy the okie doke. They think you got to live paycheck to paycheck, man. Do you know I've heard your story, and I had something similar. Yeah, I'm working for Apple, right? That's the big company. Everybody's like, you want to work for Apple? Man, I left them people. When that supervisor comes along, I'm a mentor that been given this job by somebody else because I had the skill. They're going to come along and say, well, I guess I'll take over your mentorship job. I wrote a resignation letter so fast it would have made their heads spin because guess what? I didn't need the job like that. What did you just say, man? Right. If you plan your life and you know your value, you got all types of wells of wealth. You just sitting on one pot come out a job. Give me a break, man. You are helping yourself to stay in a hole. The job you don't need. You should have been saving your money up, getting 2 and 3 months ahead of all your major bills, so you wouldn't even have to need the job. Why are you standing there running around with red bottom shoes on? And you didn't have enough sense to save money.
But it's the same thing we just talked about.
It's a choice, right?
It's the same thing we just talked about. Most of us know what to do, but the question is, are we committed to actually doing it? It's no different than, like I said, you got two types of people that listen to the show.
You're right about that. No matter what, right?
Yeah, no matter what. You got two types of people
if you
that
get a
listen
job,
to the show.
you got people like us that go to the job, take the job, learn about the whole business, and then recreate it on our own as an entrepreneur.
There you go.
If you got that mentality. But if you sitting there, well, I'll just work my job. I don't like it. You come in every day. Oh, well.
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy, you had a question. What was your question before we go to break?
Oh, the point is just that, it's an awesome show, man. I just keep listening, but it's all the keys that a human being needs to liberate themselves. What did you just say? I'm doing something that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And you can get paid for it. Can you imagine that?
But that's the Creator's design if we follow His principles.
Yeah.
100%.
That's the big thing. But it's your choice to choose to follow or not.
There you go. You said it right.
You'll either succeed based on your own or you'll fail because you won't. And what's wrong with failure anyway, my brother? If you fail, you got a chance to get it twice as right the second time. So go for it. But don't be afraid. What did you say about that word, fear?
I believe failure, if you're clear and committed, is a slingshot towards success, period. Let me tell you something on a personal level that I do on a regular basis that supports me in remaining committed. So the question I gave before we went to the break was, if you're listening and you're committed, for those of you on YouTube, for those of you on Facebook, put it in the comments. And here's what will happen. Now, you had some folks that did it, right? Ariane, Chauncey, Christopher, I see you guys on YouTube. Deborah, Ann, Judy, Joy, I see you guys on Facebook, right? You got some folks who did it. And by the way, this is not judgment. I'm giving you a place to look in terms of how I live. If I could be listening to a podcast, if they're talking about something that I deeply agree with, and then they say, do you agree? I literally say with my words, I agree. Right? And even for those of you who didn't, you might be driving, you're like, you're listening on the radio, and I didn't call you out, like, you know how powerful it is in that moment for you to say, Linal, I'm committed. Like to participate fully in what you are engaged in. And one of the things that's happened in the 21st century is there's so much coming at us that we multitask, and very seldom are we fully engaged in something. Transformation happens with full engagement. And so when I'm in a transformative process or I'm trying to learn, like, I'm all in. My wife would tell you, she might, come in the office and be trying to talk to me and something's going on. I could be on a Zoom. And let's say it's a Zoom for the mastermind I'm in. And she's like, well, that's not a client I could talk to. And I'm like, yo, I'm here right now. I can't be here and with you. If there's something important, tell me so I can answer it and I can be fully engaged again. Right. But I'm not I'm not playing half speed with her. Like, I'm listening at half speed with this. It's like, I'll give you my attention. Tell me so I can be fully engaged again. And one of the most powerful practices. And by the way, again, fear will say, well, what will I miss? What if something happens? FOMO will come up. But real transformation happens when I fully engage in things in my life, when I'm all in. And so just notice how you show up. Just notice how you show up, okay? Are you fully engaged? Hey, if you're enjoying what you're watching right now, do me a quick favor. I want you to hit the like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to tap the notification bell so you never miss when we drop new content. Seriously, it means the world that you're here. Thanks for watching, and let's get back to it. Over the past 5 weeks, what we talked about is fear at the source of the survival mechanism, how fear then generates an automatic way of being, and that's what we present to the world. That, by the way, becomes our default system. We don't even have to think about it. That's how we show up, right? And by the way, it's predictable. And when we operate that way, then what our assignment, what we become committed to is how we feel, right? And that's what fear wants. Fear wants you to be committed to how you feel versus the actual commitments that you called out, versus the actual goals that you're playing for, versus the dreams that you have, versus the vision for your life, versus those aspirations that live beneath the surface that continue to bubble up, right? They're there for a reason. The Creator put them there. But fear will say, well, going for that won't make you feel good. In fact, you might be embarrassed. You may not be ready. And so let's just pause on that. And if you're pausing, then the answer to the question of whether fear is your leader or not is yes. Fear is your leader. And then the scary part of that, if we go back to the law of polarity, and real quick, for those of you who may not be familiar with this particular law, let me break it down for you. The law of polarity teaches that there is more than one side available for which we can operate, which means that there's always two sides. And so if I'm operating from fear, then that means the thing that has influenced my life is darkness. If I'm operating from love, then the thing that is influencing my life is the Creator. And there's only two real choices, and you can try to navigate all you want in the middle. I know that some folks created a purgatory, but I ain't never read about that. So at the end of the day, if you believe in a natural creator who has natural laws, right? One of those laws, the law of gravity, that law is always working. I don't care what your name is and how good you look. You go jump off something, you're going down. That law is always working. Well, guess what other law is always working? The law of polarity. And so you can only be on one side or the other side of any scheme. And I know sometimes we want to fool ourselves and think we're in the middle or think we can operate from fear and be operating with power. It just doesn't work that way. Are you currently arrested in your life, or are you operating powerfully? It's one of the two. Now let's talk about how the survival mechanism works in action. So one of the things we spoke about is that when I'm feeling normal, when life, so, let me give you an example right now. You're listening to the show, and maybe your mind is running a bit. You're thinking about some things. Some of you may be driving as you listen. Some of you may be cooking breakfast as you listen. Others may be cleaning the house as they listen. But in the back of your mind is, this conversation. Keep the phone lines open. Keep the phone lines open just in case somebody calls. And so, and again, call with a question, 773-591-1690. If for whatever reason, you're not clear about something or you need some level of support. And so you're doing whatever it is you do as you listen. Now, some of you got a notebook out. That's a different level of engagement. Okay? That's a different level of engagement. And by the way, you always get out what you put in. But nonetheless, wherever you are likely in this moment as you do those things, smack dab in the middle of your survival mechanism, in the middle of your comfort zone. So you're good. Now, I could say something that takes you off teeter just a bit, but it's not going to take you completely outside your comfort zone because you've heard things that have rattled you or made you think or given you some level of perspective before. Inspiration, motivation, made you mad, triggered you, whatever it may be. That's happened before. And so that physiological alarm only moves you off center a bit. If you're thinking about this as a circle and fear and feeling good and protection are all right there in the middle, what I want you to think about your comfort zone as a circle, right? And then, this conversation, even if I said something crazy, motivational or triggering, just moves you off a bit, not much. And so you won't even break a sweat. But then you have a question. You go, well, what about, I wonder what this means. And then something says, well, call them. And just the idea of dialing that phone number, 773-591-1690, to ask your question, especially if you've never called before, moves you up against the edge of your comfort zone because you've never done that before. So the thought itself creates a physical, reality. Just the thought of you calling makes your heartbeat go a little faster. And this is how fear wins. And this is how fear becomes a leader, because it's like, I don't like how this is making, just the thought of it is making me feel. And then we immediately give ourselves an excuse. And this is what the brain is so good at, right? What the survival mechanism is so good at, justifying staying still. Oh, well, his teaching is really good right now. I don't want to interrupt that. Or I don't want to be the person that calls in and then we don't get everything for the show. So a justification comes up, right? And when the justification comes up, then it returns us right back to the middle of the comfort zone and we go, oh, that feels good. That feels better. Now, I want you to think about this going on and on and on in your life, day in and day out. And when this is happening, you're basically pushing away opportunities of growth. Because every time you step outside your comfort zone, you're going to feel a little off. It's going to feel a little crazy. But then what happens is your comfort zone expands to that new spot, right? There are folks that have called me every week and they don't feel uncomfortable at all because that's what they do. And a lot of them don't even be on topic. And they don't care because that's what they do. They're not even uncomfortable. And then for the person who could actually bring value, just the thought of it, man. And this is how, on a very simple level, using the show as an example, the survival mechanism works. There'll be somebody like a Slayer Goals member who's like, I'll just ask it when we connect on Wednesday. Versus, what if you got it right now? What if it was so urgent that you're not going to wait another 96 or, 100 plus hours. You're like, I need it right now. But the survival mechanism will go, no, just wait. And then Wednesday will come. You'll forget. I didn't write it down. And that one little piece that could have done something different. And so what if every moment mattered? What if when it comes to what you're committed to and what you're looking to create, like you just move on what it is that you believe you should move? I see your phone call, Williams. I'm coming there in one moment. So this is what I mean about the law of polarity. Like it's either or, right? Either you're hot or you're cold. And then if you're lukewarm, from what I read in scripture, like that's not good. That's not good. So I'm guessing that's kind of seen as cold almost, right? So when fear says protect yourself, faith says trust God. There's only, and I want you to see, this is on either side of the spectrum. Justification will say, well, you'll be okay because you were protecting yourself. But if you received a direct commandment from the Creator and you know it, now you're on the outside. And we wonder why certain darkness ends up in our life. It's because sometimes we're not taking the action we were told to take. Here, let me give it a quick example. When God told me to leave corporate America, let's say I stayed. And then 2 or 3 years later, things are happening at the job. And now I'm praying like, oh, help me with this. And I don't feel like I'm getting an answer and I feel abandoned. And a lot of times we say, he not showing up. No, I went off course 2-3 years ago. Now, the beautiful thing is that there's incredible forgiveness. So I can then go say, I was supposed to leave and I didn't. And I want you to forgive me for that. And then restoration typically comes in. And before you know it, the same calling that I had 2-3 years ago comes up again. Go. You're going to have to deal with it at some point if you're going to fully transform and align your life to where the Creator wants you to be. So are you in perpetual delay or are you just going to do it? You get to choose. What I'm afraid of, many of us, we're just in perpetual delay. Fear says you may fail. Purpose says you were designed to create something unique and powerful. What are you going to do? Keep playing small? Keep playing safe? By the way, playing safe ain't safe. Because you can only be in one or two areas, fully aligned or misaligned. When fear says, stay where you are, don't do that. Possibility says there's so much more available. Many of us will read certain scriptures around abundance and prosperity and be like, why am I not there? You ever consider it's because you ain't moved? Fear says you can't handle this, let it go. Love says you can handle it because you're not alone. I got you. Just jump, I'll catch you. Where's your belief? Where is your belief? Faith is belief plus action. And what I believe is a lot of folks fundamentally, logically believe. But when it comes to actually jumping, they're looking over the cliff saying, where you at? You down there? I don't see anything. You down there? Show me a sign. Creator's like, I've shown you so many signs. Jump. I want you to hear that. I can recognize my fear without surrendering my God-given authority. And the issue is not whether fear exists. It will always be there. The issue is who gets the final say. Who gets the final say? Fear or the Creator? Mr. Williams, how are you?
Doing good. And you? Good morning, Coach Harris.
How you doing?
Doing good. My question is, how
how do we stick with our commitment and maintaining faith if we're not seeing the results that we're looking to achieve?
Yeah. Well, this is what vision is about. And so one of the reasons we're given vision, let me give you an example. I'll tell you a story real quick. So I believe with everything, every fiber of my being, when I was being told to leave corporate America, that was the voice of God. And I was supposed to leave in August of 2015. I didn't leave until November. Part of that was fear. I was arrested. And when I did leave, I had what I felt was a pretty good net, because I had 21 people on my wait list who were potential clients who I couldn't serve because I was in corporate America at the time. And I didn't have the space or the time or the cognitive ability to do both. And so I came out and I said, well, first thing to do is, start calling the folks on this list, 21 people on the list. And so I'll call person number one. They're like, oh, man, when we talked, I was so excited, but not right now. Person number two, same thing. Person number three, same thing. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, same thing. Wow, surely number 11 will be different. Nope, same thing. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, same thing. 17, 18, 19, same thing. Lord, I know the last two are going to sign up because you're the one that told me to leave corporate America and I need revenue in order to sustain. 2021, same thing. Well, you told me to leave. Why would you tell me to leave and then allow something like that to happen? When you look through scripture, and Mr. Williams, I recognize the voice, and so I know that you're aligned with scripture. One of the things I've learned about the Creator is not only does he want the action, but he wants unwavering belief. Unwavering, no matter what. I told you to leave, so are you going to go back? So going into 2016, I don't have clients. At the time, I left corporate America with only 4 clients. And that's all I have, January, February, March, 2 of them complete. I got 2 clients and no money's coming in. I'm newly married. My wife is getting up and going to work every day. I'm sitting around the house. And it's not a good look. We're newlywed. She's coming in, looking at me like, well, how things go today? It's like same old, same old. And again, my question to God in my prayers was, you told me to leave. So then I began operating in my own power. Now, mind you, I was given a vision for what to create. And as far as I knew, I was working that vision. So I started thinking to myself, well, a good man would have a job. And if you ain't bringing in no revenue, you probably should get a job. Now, this is Linal thinking, okay? Because every time I prayed, it was like, you in the right space, you doing what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, but I'm not doing nothing. Now, in the background, what I want you to understand is that because I had this space, I'm writing my first book, Slay Your Goals. Y'all see what's happening here? Now, those of you who know, like now you're like, ooh. Now, I don't know what this book is going to do. I have no idea, right? I feel like I'm wasting my days away. But I am writing this book, Slay Your Goals. So then, all of a sudden, I get a phone call. It was actually ComEd at the time. They had an open officer position. They're like, hey, you're available right now. You're perfect for this role. What do you think I did? Everything in me is like, you ain't supposed to be working. I went on the interview. Now, was that aligned? Absolutely not. So now I'm spinning my wheels. I go through the interview process. I'm in line as one of the top 2 prospects. And before I do the final interview, I feel like crazy guilt. The creator's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm supposed to just call and take my name out the bucket. No. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I want to be aligned, right? And I'm giving you a real blow by blow how it works when we're committed, because commitment is not, as a human being, your commitment will flail, right? That's what we have, breakdowns. And that's human to have breakdowns. So fast forward, and I go another 2 or 3 months, and nothing's really happening with clientele, nothing really happening in my business. And another company calls, big time e-commerce internet company calls. They're like, hey, you're perfect for this role. What do I do? Same mistake. I start going down the path for interviewing for this role. And this is what I mean by the creator wants absolute commitment. Even sharing this with you, Williams, is helping me right now with something I'm working through. He wants absolute commitment. Because I need it, like for us as human beings, often we want to see the plan. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? What's like, I need to see the plan, or I want to be able to put it together, then obey. Right? And so this is about June of 2016. And I'm going through, I'm basically the person they want in this role. It would require my wife and I to move. Mind you, I'm on the radio in 2016, and I can see very clearly this is not aligned because I'm doing my purpose work. I'm on the radio, and so what? I don't have clients. It's like, but I can't leave. Not when the creator has given me this, all these things that I'm doing purpose workshops, all these things for revenue, and all that's going well. And so I call them up and I say, hey, I gotta, there's something I'm supposed to be doing that I'm not doing. I got to focus fully on that. And then after that, I made this deep personal commitment within myself. And see, this is the thing about your spiritual walk. The creator knows when you're all in and when you're not. You can't fool. I wasn't all in. Just because I had left corporate America, I wasn't all in, all out of corporate America. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been interviewing. It was still in my heart. I still saw that as my source. When I let this big e-commerce company go, and I said, I trust in you, and you are my source, all of a sudden, boom, clients showed up. Like it was a matter of my heart, not my strategy. You all get that? And you have to know that everything is spiritual. Like if you got struggles in your health, there's a spiritual component you need to overcome. You got struggles in your relationships, there's a spiritual component you have to overcome. Struggle with your money, there's a spiritual component. Struggle with your work, there's a spiritual component that you have to overcome. When I gave it all to the creator, all of a sudden, boom. It's like, oh, you trust me? Watch this. And it just started coming in. So when you're committed to something and you feel like it's not working, my prayer would be, where am I still holding on? What strategy, like personal strategy, Linal strategy, am I still holding on to when you want me to utilize your strategies? What successful people do that feels counterintuitive is, let me give you another example. So right now I'm reading Numbers. And in Numbers, the children of Israel are counted. You have in the beginning where they count the men, the fighting men come to about 630,000. And then towards the end of Numbers, they do a census of the people. But when you think about how many people, like the number of people that the children of Israel made, it's a large number, right? Let's take 630,000 fighting men. Like if I got 630,000 fighting men, why would I walk around a city 7 times? Man, pull your bow and arrows out, get your javelin sharp, you know, make some shields. Let's take it by force, right? That's the human way. And so many of us are struggling in certain areas of our life where we're being called forward because we're moving with personal human strategy. And we know in our spirit that there's another strategy, but it doesn't make sense. You tell me, if you got that many fighting men, does it make sense to walk silently around a city 7 times for 7 days? Does that make human sense? I'm sure as they did it, the men on the walls were looking like, what's wrong with them? And if you're concerned about the men on the walls, you won't do it. And there's some places in our business and in our health and in our relationships where the Creator is saying, walk around 7 times. And you're like, but I got muscle. And he's like, I don't want you to use that. Now, why is that the case? One of the things that I've come to learn in my own relationship with God is that he wants all the glory. Not some of it, all of it. So if I had used my human strategies back in 2016 and I had become successful, I couldn't tell this story today. It would be a Linal Harris story of success. But I can't say that my business is based on a Linal Harris story of success. My business success has been based foundationally in my belief in faith in God. Because a lot of it doesn't make a whole lot of real human sense. I'm so serious. I can count executive after executive that left corporate America as well, and they weren't successful. And they had all the pedigree and the degrees. So our trump card is always walking with God, and walking with God does not always make logical sense to us as human beings. And many times the strategies that he gives us are counterintuitive to what we normally would do. Fear might be present, but I trust that the Creator that I serve has the ultimate power. And that is where I rest my mind. That is how it sounds. I'm not filled with anxiety. I'm going to do this thing and trust. And that is the exact opposite of what my survival mechanism wants me to do. That's the exact opposite. In Numbers, we get the story of the 12 spies, one man from every tribe. And they go into the promised land, and they're there for 40 days. And they're spying it out. Right? And they come back. And one who is filled with the Spirit and connected to the Creator is like, we can take this land. I want you to see the difference, right? Because whatever problem's in front of you right now, whatever it is that you're afraid of, you yourself, yeah, I get it. But you're not alone. And so if I'm in partnership, then I can take this land. We can take this land. He saw everything that the other 10 saw outside of Joshua, right? Caleb. Only Caleb and Joshua are like, we can take this land. But later on in Numbers, the Bible says that Joshua was filled with the Spirit. So, of course, he's got a different lens. He's looking at it like, yeah, but I ain't by myself. So I got this. The other 10, mind you, they came back with the fruit of the land, all the things that it could give, but they still feel like preach fear to the rest of the congregation. Oh, we don't want to do that. Why? Because they were coming at it from a logical perspective. We might have 600,000, but they got millions. You got this nation and that nation, and the Canaanites are over here, and Amalek. You get right, and they this. Do you believe in the promise that God gives you? Now, let me finish the story about 2016. So in 2016, I had that break, and the beauty of that break is that by the end of the year, I had written Slay Your Goals. Now, and these are the things that Slay Your Goals, 5 tips for achieving your life goals. End up being on television, talking about the book. In 2016, I started the membership. It started, not a lot of people were in 2016. Most came in 2017. And if it weren't for that reprieve, if I had gone straight in with clients, Slay Your Goals would not exist. So what happens is we have these expectations of how things are supposed to go. And the creator is like, nah, I'm putting it together myself. I want it to be like this. You're supposed to support a community of hundreds of people who can't afford coaching. And if all 21 of those people respond, you won't have space to do that. I need you to create something for people who can't afford coaching, Linal. If I had all the clients I wanted at the time that I wanted them, there would be no Slay Your Goals. So sometimes the creator's working his strategy and we're annoyed. But if I do what Timothy tells us, I rest in peace of a sound mind saying, I don't know what your plan is, but I'm just going to do what I know to do, because whatever I'm working on right now, you're going to take that seed and grow it, and it's going to become something, and I can't even begin to understand. Last year, I wrote a book called Nature's Leadership Code. And this is much more than a leadership book, because I believe the best lessons, now you all know, in terms of my faith, who I am and what I believe, if you listen on a regular basis. And I wrote the book because I'm so inspired when I'm in the first church. What do I mean by the first church? Nature. All you have to do, my nephew, my sister-in-law's in town, my nephew's 6 months, and, he was a little fussy, whatever. And so I took him from my wife. I said, you come with me. You know how I got him to stop crying? Nature. I took him outside and walked him around the house, and we were looking at the flowers and the plants. You saw his eyes come open like, wow, that's the first church. That's the first church. Even a fussy baby is like, I got to stop and look at this. This is amazing. I said, isn't it amazing? I said, you see all the different colors of the flowers? And I said, oh, and look at that. That's a bee. If that bee didn't exist, you could have none of these flowers. And, he's not fully, connecting, but he can see it all. And he could see his eyes is big, and he's looking at everything. And him and I were just walking around the house. I'm having a conversation with him. No fuss whatsoever. Why? Because he's in the presence of God. He feels it. He's in the presence of God. And so I wrote this book because I believe the best leadership strategies come from what God created. And when we look at animals, we see how they operate with instinctive authority. And one of the things I want you to do, I'm going to put a link in the chat for Facebook, and I'll put this link in the chat for YouTube. If you haven't identified your animal archetype, your leadership animal archetype that connects you with your instinctive leadership style, I want you to go ahead and do that. If you haven't grabbed the book, you can grab it on Amazon, or you can go on my website and you can grab it on my website. On my website, if you order it, I'll send you a signed copy. Grab a copy of the book, because as we continue over the few months, I'm going to be really tapping back into the book, where we can really, talk about how every lesson we need for moving forward, God has already given us. And a lot of it is right in our face. A lot of it is right in our face. And we're looking at all these abstract places. And I was talking to a leader this week, and, she's leading at a high level, an executive. And I told her, I was like, you should just come to Uganda with me. You're looking for that next like leadership breakthrough. I'm like, you just need to be in church for a week. She's like, church for a week? I'm like, yeah, nature. And watch how that experience transforms you. And I told her, for me, it feels like cheating because Linal, I just take people there and then I allow the creator and them being completely immersed in his creation to transform them and take them to the next place. And then I just provide simple context and guidelines and guardrails. Like, let's think about this way. God is so good. Shirley, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I am a member of the Slay Your Goal community, and I just want to say the last time I was in the hot seat, I have a praise report. I was giving up. I was about to give up. You know, I was working the NOF grant the city of Chicago is giving out. Mm-hmm. That $250,000, I said it was too much. I told you I was going to just go ahead and get a loan and do my own stuff. Mm-hmm. And we worked through my issues, and I hung in there, and I got the NOF grant.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Just that little push. I love it. I love it. I love it. So it sounds like you followed all those practices that we generated during that coaching session, and you got the grant.
I did. I followed it. You call it coaching session. I call it the hot seat.
I suppose it feels like a hot seat when you're getting coached like that. But right. It's a coaching session, and it's an opportunity for you to get the strategic coaching support that takes you to the next level. And so thank you for that, Shirley. And so I'm guessing that you're moving everything forward now based on the goals.
Yes.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. I'm super excited. Everything is coming to pass. My goal now is to have it up and running by August.
Look at that. And so my suggestion.
Yeah. Won't he do it?
He will. And here's my suggestion, Shirley. The best time to get follow-up coaching is after a win. And so in our next session, get back in the coaching corner so that way you can be very clear about the next strategies. Okay, I want it. Am I moving expeditiously? What are the things? And just get that support so you could go ahead and close this out. And the next time you give me a phone call, it can be a complete celebration of a 100% achieved goal.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the phone call. Let me ask you this, Shirley. Would you say, just based on that, would you say that you are getting the ROI out of your Slay Your Goals membership?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not only that, I don't get a chance to fully engage on every time that we meet, like on the Thursdays when you have the special stuff because of my working and what I'm doing. But I promise you, anyone that wants to grow and learn and get confidence in themselves and just listen to the whole community, this is the space to be in.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Shirley. I appreciate your phone call.
You're
and congratulations. Congratulations on that, man. That made my day. That's awesome. I love to see.
Thank you.
I love to see members winning. Excellent. All right. Okay. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
So there you guys have it. You know, I can talk about it, but it's one thing to hear, an actual member call in, and I remember that coaching session. And here's the other great thing about the community. You have some real players, right? I mean, we're having like big time leadership conversations, investment conversations, and you get to be a part of all that in this community. When you become a Slay Your Goals member, you can go to slayyourgoals.com, hit the Become a Member tab, and, you learn what you needed to learn from that phone call. Just hit the button, pay the membership. Our first working strategy session is July 1st. We're kicking the month off with clear action plans for the month. And learn these strategies that support you with taking you to the next level. All of them are grounded in biblical principle. You want to know what the secret sauce is. How does Linal get these guys across, like what's happening? What is he doing? It's not magic. I promise you. What I have found is that when I ground my strategies for my personal life and biblical principles, we don't lose. And so I'm like, well, let's take this same recipe into coaching. Let's take the same recipe into business. Let's take the same recipe into the Slay Your Goals membership. Let's see what happens for members. And there you go, right? Just grounded in those principles, those universal laws, which are, again, God's laws, those principles that have been recognized as truth, like the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, all these different things. We use these things as leverage because we know that if they're sound, they come from the Creator. So then let's use these sound principles and laws to take our lives to the next level. And so that's the work we're doing. If you want to be a part of that, I'd love for you to go ahead and join. Right now is an amazing time to do that. The only thing that gets between us and transformation is fear. That's it. Why does the fear show up? Because your fear knows how to navigate who you are, how you show up, what you do today. It only knows how to navigate that. If you go transforming your life and creating more things, like right now, when I think about, I understand why my fear didn't want me to get back in that executive room and have a conversation. Because it knew then it would have to manage multiple businesses, real estate transactions and transportation, and buying new vehicles. It knew it was going to have to do all these different things. It didn't want to do that. But my vision said, you are an entrepreneur running multiple businesses that exceed 7 figures, right? That's what the vision said. But in order for me to do that, I had to get uncomfortable. And it starts somewhere. Where is your process starting? Is it as simple as hitting the button to become a member or typing in slayyourgoals.com? It could be that simple. But if you want the outcome, you need the support. It doesn't have to be me, but for almost all of us, it's somebody outside of ourselves. Who will it be for you? All I care about is that you move. Don't stay frozen in fear. Move forward powerfully, and take your life to the next level. Operate with a new level of instinctive authority so that you can establish yourself in a powerful way. Joshua 1:9, have not I commanded thee to be strong and of good courage? Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest. We got the guarantee. Just operate in it. Somebody say, hey, grab this 30-day guarantee. It's a man. We'll believe them. How much more a creator that's never, ever lied and always picks up when you call. It won't be AI. Thank you for watching Inspirational Perspective. If you love this show and you want to see more content like this, you can go right here. And if you like this subject and you want to see much more content that we have available for you, just click the button here. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to watch the show live, 7 a.m. every Sunday morning on WVON Radio, or you can catch it right here on YouTube or Facebook.com/Coach Linal Harris. Be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so we can get more content just like this to you.